Beverly Hills. Its name and zip code, 90210, are synonymous with wealth and status, a place for the rich and famous. The houses of Beverly Hills are something else. A third of the top 15 largest homes in the LA area are within this city, many of which are also some of the largest homes in the entire US. Some of these mansions are almost 50,000 square feet in size. Most people's understanding of Beverly Hills comes through the filter of pop culture, and the stereotype that everyone who lives there is a rich movie star. But how much of that is actually true? I mean, yes, this is Rodeo Drive, famous for its luxury boutiques, but this is also Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. This street would fit in just about any upper middle class neighborhood in Southern California.
The point is, Beverly Hills is more complicated than you probably thought, and planning for a city full of gated homes is also complicated. Let's take a tour of Beverly Hills after the bike bell. Before we answer any of those questions, let's lay down some facts and history about Beverly Hills, as it's a place most of us know only through pop culture.
But it is a real place, an incorporated city located here, bordered to the north by the Santa Monica Mountains, and completely surrounded by the city of Los Angeles. For being such a well-known city, it only has a population of around 32,000, but the residents that it does have are incredibly well-connected and influential. It's also not the only wealthy enclave in the area. Bel Air, Holmby Hills, and plenty of other attractive neighborhoods are all close by.
So how then did Beverly Hills get so famous and wealthy? It's all in the history.
The first European settlers here were the Spanish, who set up an agricultural community here in the 1830s. El Rodeo de las Aguas, as it was known, focused on livestock agriculture, and lima bean farms were planted starting in the 1880s. But this agricultural lifestyle quickly changed in the 1900s when real estate developers set their eyes on ranch land and purchased farms with the hopes of finding oil. When this proved unsuccessful, the Rodeo Land and Water Company purchased the property and planned for a new community. The subdivision became an incorporated city in 1914. As was common practice in the US at the time, the developers used restrictive covenants that excluded people of color and Jewish people. Now, because this practice was so widespread, this isn't the only reason why Beverly Hills is known for being so wealthy and white. Last year, I did a video on Compton, another Southern California city that had racial covenants and eventually became synonymous with being a community of black residents. There are a couple things that might have tipped the scales for Beverly Hills in the other direction. First, the literal hills that provided great views of the surrounding area and the Pacific Ocean. It was desirable real estate. This attracted early stars of nearby Hollywood. The construction of a mansion for Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford, popular actors and producers in the film industry, gave Beverly Hills some cachet. More celebrities and movie stars began building mansions here, and the rest is history. Beverly Hills' image as a place for the wealthy and famous continued to attract the, well, wealthy and famous. But in the 1920s, the city saw its first major challenge. With so many actors and celebrities moving from around the country to Beverly Hills, the city's water supply began to dry up. Those lawns don't water themselves. The proposed remedy for the situation was for the city of Los Angeles to annex Beverly Hills. LA had been draining the Owens Valley of its water for years by this point, securing the water it needed to grow into a global metropolis. Another subdivision wouldn't make a dent in the city's overall water demand. But this proposal was not what Beverly Hills residents had in mind for the future of their city. They believed themselves to have a separate identity from the rest of LA, and they wanted to stay intact. Celebrity intervention into local politics proved wildly successful for their case. Huge actors at the time, as well as the Beverly Hills Utility Commission, publicly opposed the annexation and managed to squash the proposal in a special election. 30 years later, Beverly Hills actually grew by annexing an incredibly wealthy subdivision next door, Troutdale Estates. Celebrities like Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and many more have called Troutdale Estates their home since its development and annexation. While I mentioned before that the racial covenants in Beverly Hills wasn't enough to guarantee that it would be a whites-only community, it did do the trick pretty well. Starting in the 1940s and 1950s, black celebrities who couldn't buy in Beverly Hills moved to View Park, which became known as the Black Beverly Hills. Today, View Park is the largest, wealthiest, and most architecturally distinct black neighborhood in the entire United States, though still not as wealthy as the original Beverly Hills. There has been a non-white group that has managed to settle in Beverly Hills, and today makes up about 25% of the population. They are immigrants from Iran, particularly the Persian Jews. Beverly Hills even had an Iranian-American mayor. This influx of immigrants hasn't been without conflict, but it's a very Beverly Hills kind of conflict. Longtime locals dislike the architecture of the homes the Persian community has built there. They're referred to as Persian palaces. Typically, a Persian family will buy a normal-sized home, tear it down, and build a new house that maximizes interior space. This results in a home some feel is out of scale with the rest of the neighborhood. This architectural style usually consists of large columns, double-high entry spaces, and a general quasi-classical vibe. Some call them gaudy, but they have become a part of the landscape of Beverly Hills.
So the city of Beverly Hills does have some diversity, and that diversity extends to income. Sort of. The whole city isn't incredibly wealthy.
There's a dividing line between the north and south parts of the city, where the richest residents live north of Santa Monica Boulevard and the less rich live to the south. A quick look on Zillow shows that you can buy a house for only $2 or $3 million south of Santa Monica Boulevard, while houses to the north are almost all 8 figures. This divide means that Beverly Hills actually holds the record for the highest income inequality of all cities in California. The top 20% of households account for 62.5% of the total income of the city, with an average yearly salary of $661,000. The bottom 20% only makes up 1.6% of the total earnings and makes an average of $14,500 yearly. Those with lower incomes can't always afford to shop at the generally fancier grocery stores in the city and often need to go elsewhere for everyday items like groceries. So in Beverly Hills, the middle-class residents would be considered very high-income residents anywhere else. When you have a population like this that's so wealthy and influential, what can a city like Beverly Hills do that other cities can't? Well, they can be sure to avoid getting cut in two by LA's massive highway network. Let's look at the map. While the rest of Los Angeles is full of elevated concrete monoliths of highways, Beverly Hills only has California State Route 2 running through it, and it runs at grade as Santa Monica Boulevard. Originally, a Beverly Hills freeway was planned to connect the 101 and 405 freeways, and that would have run underground in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills, but the wealthy residents of Beverly Hills had enough political power to stop even an underground highway through their city. There are no future plans to build this highway either. Water was a big issue for Beverly Hills in the 1920s, and it's still a big issue in the 2020s. How does a city with 2,481 swimming pools conserve water in a state that is seemingly either always in a drought or about to be in one? Particularly since the 2012 to 2016 drought in California, counties and cities have been given strict water consumption targets they must meet or face the risk of fines from the state. In general, most of the state has dramatically lowered their per capita water use by installing more efficient water fixtures, planting native lawns, and being more thoughtful about water use generally. But of course, not all communities want to follow these water cuts. In 2015, it was found that the residents of Beverly Hills and other wealthy areas of LA tended to have larger houses with highly landscaped lawns and pools, and were using 151 to 281 gallons of water per person per day, while the state average was only 72.6 gallons per person per day. While many communities in the state had to reduce their water use by 10%, Beverly Hills residents used so much that they were told to cut their water consumption by 35%. A year later, in 2016, when the state checked back in, residents had not met any of their goals for water consumption decreases, and it took heavy fines from the State Water Resources Control Board to rein in many properties' water use. Now, it's probably not surprising that some of the world's wealthiest, most influential people will be willing to flaunt water restrictions. I get the sense that for many residents of Beverly Hills, they consider their gated home to be their own private castle. They feel free to do whatever they want within their walls. This is also what makes Beverly Hills different than most communities. So many gates and walls. This is a city where residents are extremely concerned about privacy, and it makes sense that gates would be necessary. But when you drive around, it feels very uninviting. Almost all road space is catered towards private vehicles exclusively, and a lot of areas have no space for pedestrians to walk at all. Extra tall hedges protect outsiders from spying on individual properties, and gated houses in their communities are the norm. Individual properties are, for all intents and purposes, their own little islands. This focus on their own personal castles has unsurprisingly made many Beverly Hills residents opposed to affordable housing within the city's boundaries. The state of California requires all cities to plan for an allotted amount of new affordable housing. Beverly Hills has not done its fair share. The state of California rejected Beverly Hills' housing plan, and the city is being sued by the nonprofit Californians for Homeownership. Both the state and the lawsuit point to the city's assumption that many properties that are currently health clinics, religious community centers, and theaters could be completely redeveloped to become apartment buildings. That's just not going to happen. It's not hard to believe that Beverly Hills is a difficult place to build housing. Essentially, all of its land is already developed, and land that isn't dedicated to buildings is dedicated to expensive lawns. The people who own these houses are unlikely to build ADUs or demolish their house and replace it with apartments, and the city doesn't seem to want to do much to change that. The city even managed to decrease its population count by several thousand people in recent years. So no surprise, Beverly Hills is an exclusive enclave. And when you have an exclusive enclave, you have residents who feel comfortable flaunting water restrictions or barring new affordable housing. The world beyond the walls of your house just doesn't matter as much as what's inside. And the residents of Beverly Hills have another invisible wall, their city limits. While places like Bel Air have to abide by the laws of the city of Los Angeles, Beverly Hills can draft laws that cater exclusively to its own interests. Beverly Hills is an island full of little house-sized islands. So I'm obviously back from Beverly Hills and back in the studio, and after some time reflecting on my experience in Beverly Hills, I have some thoughts as someone who visited only briefly and is definitely just an outsider. I found downtown Beverly Hills to be surprisingly dense and bustling, but it was a place absolutely choked with cars. It also seemed like a place people wanted to be seen with their fancy cars. But it'd be so much better if a place like Rodeo Drive was completely car-free. This little section of downtown was car-free, and it was totally the best part. I'm not gonna lie and say that it wouldn't be cool to live in some of the houses I saw, but the lack of consistent sidewalks and bike lanes was definitely a weakness for me. Again, it felt like a place where cars are status symbols, and there isn't much demand for alternative modes, and that's just not my jam. Even though Beverly Hills might not be for me, maybe it's for you, and there's definitely a special allure to Beverly Hills that I do understand. Now, you obviously have to be pretty wealthy to move to Beverly Hills, and one of the best ways to jump social classes is by getting a great education. And you can get a great education right now online. Maybe you want to brush up on your math and science, which could help you pursue a university degree. Or become an expert on the latest emerging technologies like AI and data science. Brilliant.org is the best place to do all of these things and more. Brilliant teaches you STEM topics in a low-stress environment, at your own pace, while still being incredibly effective. It's perfect for all you busy people out there. I'm a college professor, and I know that the techniques Brilliant uses are backed up by best practices in teaching and education. Brilliant doesn't lecture or have you memorize facts and formulas like the old days, but it uses active learning techniques like interactive visuals and low-stakes assessment to get you to really understand these complex topics. You're actually solving problems. Again, this is widely considered to be best practices for education. These courses are so good that I've even used Brilliant to sharpen my knowledge of STEM topics, like data science, to help me with my research. Odds are Brilliant has a course that can help you too. They have over 60 with thousands of lessons, including calculus, chemistry, computer science, with more added monthly. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for a full 30 days for free, visit brilliant.org/citybeautiful or go click on the link in the description. I've also posted it on the screen. The first 200 of you who do so will get 20% off an annual premium subscription.